Brothers and sisters, may the peace and blessings of Allah be with you. This is Religious Storytelling YouTube channel, where we bring to life the most profound tales of faith, wisdom, and divine truth. Today we journey through the story of a man whose name was not among the prophets. Yet Allah honored him so greatly that an entire chapter of the Qur'an was named after him. His wisdom shaped generations, and his words were preserved until the day of judgment. But who was this man, and how did he earn such honor from Allah? Stay with us till the end, because what you'll learn from his story may forever change the way you see wisdom and faith. Among the countless figures mentioned in the Qur'an, there stands one remarkable man, Hazrat Luqman, radiyallahu anhu, known not for prophethood, but for his divine wisdom and unwavering faith. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, Luqman was not a prophet, but he was a man who reflected deeply, was granted certainty, and loved Allah, and Allah loved him in return. Because of this love, Allah blessed him with the greatest of gifts, the gift of wisdom. Luqman lived long ago in the lands of Africa, in a village known as Nubia or Nubia. His complexion was dark, his lips were thick, and his feet were broad, signs of his African origin. For many years he lived as a slave to a wealthy man from Banu Israel. Yet even as a servant, his speech was filled with calmness, and his judgments carried weight far beyond his status. One day his master, a man named Qayn bin Hijr, began to notice something unusual. Whenever conflict or confusion arose in his household, this quiet servant spoke a few simple words, and the problem dissolved as though guided by divine light. Eventually, the master freed him, recognizing that no chain should bind a man whose mind was touched by wisdom. His lineage and time. Historians differ on his exact era. Some say he lived during the reign of Prophet Dawood, ʿalayhis-salām. Others believe he lived much earlier, even until the time of Prophet Yunus, ﷺ. But all agree on one thing: Luqman, radiyallahu anhu, was a righteous man whom Allah himself chose to honor. Though not a prophet, he was among the most pious of servants, a man whose every word carried light. His wisdom became known far and wide, and poets of ancient Arabia often mentioned him as a symbol of intellect and understanding. Yet the greatest proof of his wisdom is not in any book of men, but in the Qur'an itself. In Surah Luqman, Allah immortalized his words of advice to his son, so that mankind until the end of time may learn from him. It is narrated that one day, as Luqman, radiyallahu anhu, rested in the shade, he heard a voice calling to him, "O Luqman, Allah has appointed you as his representative on earth, to judge among the people with justice." Humbled, Luqman replied, "O my Lord, if you give me the choice, I choose safety, not trial. But if it is your command, I accept it with all my heart. For you do not place a burden on one except you grant him strength to bear it." The angel then asked, "O Luqman, why do you fear becoming a judge among people?" And he replied with profound humility, "Because judgment is one of the greatest responsibilities. The cries of oppression come from every side, and if Allah does not protect the judge, he will slip into injustice and ruin. I prefer to be low in this world and raised high in the hereafter, than to be high in this world and lowered in the next." At that moment, the angel was astonished by Luqman's insight, and Allah filled his heart with divine wisdom. From that day onward, Luqman's words flowed with light, and his tongue became a fountain of understanding. His wisdom and character. Luqman, radiyallahu anhu, was known not for his looks, but for his heart. Someone once said to him mockingly, "Aren't you the same man who used to herd sheep with us?" He smiled and replied, "Yes, but what raised me is not my form or my status. It is the truth I spoke, the trust I fulfilled, and the vain things I left behind." His humility was his crown, and his sincerity his garment. But Luqman's wisdom was not limited to words. His life was filled with real stories, moments that turned his wisdom into action, showing how true faith manifests in daily life. The Gambler by the Spring. The sun blazed over the desert valley. Near a bubbling spring sat a group of wealthy men, surrounded by laughter, dice, and the clinking of gold coins. Among them was a rich man, drunk with both wine and arrogance. He gambled recklessly, betting everything he owned on a foolish game of chance. In his pride, he shouted, "If I lose, I'll drink this entire spring dry, or I'll hand over my wealth and my wife to the winner." As fate would have it, he lost. Silence fell. The victor smirked and demanded his payment, the man's honor and wealth. The gambler's heart sank. He pleaded for one day, just one day, to find a way out. Desperate, he sought the help of Hazrat Luqman, radiallahu anhu, whose wisdom had become the talk of the land. When he arrived, trembling, Luqman listened calmly, his eyes filled with mercy. "I will help you," he said, "but on one condition. Promise me that you will never gamble again." The man, ashamed, nodded immediately. Luqman then said, "When that man demands his prize, tell him this. If you mean the water that flowed yesterday, bring it back so I can drink it. If you mean the water flowing now, then block the spring, and I will drink what remains. And if you mean the water that will flow tomorrow, then wait, for tomorrow has not yet come." The next day, the gambler repeated Luqman's exact words. The crowd fell silent. The victor blinked in confusion, unable to answer. In that moment, everyone realized Luqman's wisdom had saved the man from a lifetime of regret. Word spread swiftly, and people began to say, "This man's tongue is touched by light, his mind by the mercy of Allah." Another day, Luqman's master tested his servant's intelligence. He said, "Slaughter a sheep and bring me the two best parts of it." Luqman obeyed, prepared the meal, and presented the heart and the tongue. The next day, the master commanded again, "Now slaughter another sheep and bring me the two worst parts of it." Luqman once again brought the heart and the tongue. Surprised, the master asked, "Yesterday you brought these as the best parts. Today as the worst. Why?" Luqman smiled and replied, "When the heart and the tongue are pure, nothing is better. But when they are corrupt, nothing is worse." The master stood silent, humbled by the truth that came from the lips of his former slave. Years later, that same master grew to love Luqman dearly. One day, someone gifted him a melon. The master sliced it and handed the first piece to Luqman. Luqman ate it gratefully, smiling with every bite. Slice after slice, he kept eating, until only one piece remained, which the master decided to taste for himself. But the moment he bit into it, his face twisted in pain. It was unbearably bitter. He spat it out and cried, "Luqman, how did you eat this without flinching? Why didn't you say anything?" Luqman looked at him with gentle eyes and replied, "For years, you have given me only sweet things. Should I not bear one moment of bitterness without complaint?"
For years you have
Tears welled in the master's eyes, for Luqman's words carried not only wisdom, but the deepest gratitude and loyalty. And so, brothers and sisters, let us remember, when life turns bitter for a while, it may only be a test. Should we not remain grateful after all the sweetness Allah has already granted us? The donkey and the crowd. There is perhaps no story of Luqman more famous than the lesson he taught his son through a journey on a humble donkey. One morning, Luqman, radiallahu anhu, said to his son, whose name, according to some narrations, was Baran, "My dear son, today I will show you something important. Come, let's go for a walk." He took along their donkey, mounted it himself, and let his son walk beside him. As they passed through the market, people whispered, "Look at that old man, riding while his young son walks. What a selfish father." Luqman turned to his son and said, "Did you hear that? Remember it." Then he dismounted and told his son to ride it instead. As they went on, another group of people mocked them again. "Look at that spoiled boy. His poor father walks while he rides. Such disrespect." Luqman smiled gently. Did you hear that too, my son? This time, both of them mounted the donkey together. But the next village they entered, people frowned and said, "Shame on them. 2 men on 1 poor animal. They will break its back." So Luqman said, "Come, my son. Let us walk and leave the donkey." Now, as they both walked with the donkey behind them, another crowd burst out laughing. "These 2 fools have a donkey, yet choose to walk." Luqman turned to his son and said softly, "You see, my son, no matter what you do, people will always have something to say, so never live to please them. Live to please Allah alone." And that simple lesson has echoed through centuries. Pleasing people is impossible, but pleasing Allah brings peace that no man can take away. His final lessons to his son. As Luqman radiallahu anhu grew older, his beard turned white, but his wisdom only deepened. He gathered his son and said, "O my son, I have served hundreds of prophets, and I have gathered 4 lessons from all of them. When you pray, protect your heart. When you eat, protect your throat, avoiding the unlawful. When you enter someone's home, protect your eyes. And when you are among people, protect your tongue." Then he added softly, "Keep your heart pure, my son, for a clean heart is more valuable than a golden crown." Years passed, and Hazrat Luqman, ﷺ, grew old. The lines upon his face told stories of patience, gratitude, and reflection. One evening, as the orange light of sunset fell upon his humble home, he called his son close. His voice was calm but heavy with wisdom as he said, "Oh, my beloved son, remember these 3 pieces of advice, and they will guard you more faithfully than an army. First, never reveal your secret, not even to your wife. Second, do not befriend the officials of rulers, for closeness to power invites ruin. And third, never borrow from a man who is newly wealthy and arrogant in his riches." The boy listened, his youthful heart curious yet not fully understanding. Luqman placed his hand on his son's shoulder and said gently, "One day you may doubt these words, but when you test them, you will know their truth." After his father's passing, the young man remembered those words and decided to test them, to see what harm they might bring. He slaughtered a sheep, placed its body in a sack, and buried it beneath his bed. Then he said to his wife, "I have killed a man who was my enemy. I buried him here. Tell no one of this."
I buried him here.
Days
Tell
passed.
no one of this.
One day, anger flared between them in an argument. In her rage, his wife screamed so loudly that the neighbors heard her. "You murderer! You've killed a man and buried him under our bed." The entire town erupted in gossip. Among those who heard was a local government official, a man the son had recently befriended. Instead of helping him, the official ran straight to the king. The king ordered, "Bring this murderer before me at once." The official came to the house, stormed in, and dragged Luqman's son through the streets in humiliation. As they walked, the man from whom he had borrowed money, a proud, newly rich trader, ran up to him and said angrily, "Return my dirhams now. If they execute you, I'll lose everything." He slapped and insulted him in public, caring nothing for their friendship. Dragged before the king, Luqman's son stood trembling. The king asked sternly, "You are the son of the wise Luqman.
Your Majesty,
How could you commit
I have not
murder?"
killed anyone.
The young man replied, "Your Majesty, I have not killed anyone.
There lies the one I killed.
But if you doubt me, send men to dig beneath my bed. There lies the one I killed." The king gave the order. When the soldiers returned and unsealed the sack, everyone gasped. Inside was only the carcass of a sheep. The son then fell to his knees and wept. "O king, my father once told me never to reveal my secret even to my wife, never to befriend rulers, and never to borrow from a newly rich man. I disobeyed him, and now I see his every word was truth."
And now I see
The court fell silent.
every word was true.
The king himself lowered his gaze, realizing the power of Luqman's wisdom, a man not of royal blood, yet mightier in understanding than any king who had ever sat upon that throne. The final advice to his son: Before his death, Luqman gathered his son one last time beneath the shade of a tree. The wind was soft, carrying the scent of the earth. He looked at his son and said, "O my dear son, know that this world is fleeting, a prison for the believer and a paradise for the heedless. Do not chase what fades, for the world is filled with sin and temptation. Let it be your prison, so that the hereafter may be your eternal home." He paused, then continued, "Do not burden yourself with what you cannot bear. You cannot uproot a mountain, so do not carry the mountain of calamity on your shoulders. And do not live too near kings. Their favor is poison, and their anger is fire. Stay among the poor, the humble, and the righteous. They will lift you closer to Allah." His eyes grew softer. "When you ask Allah for forgiveness, remember, it is not your words that earn forgiveness, but your deeds, your obedience, and your sincerity. First look to your neighbor before choosing your home, and to your companion before setting out on a journey. For a good friend in this life is a rope that pulls you toward Jannah." He leaned closer. "My son, solitude is better than the company of the corrupt, but the company of the righteous is better than solitude. A heavy stone is easier to bear than a foolish companion, for a fool will weigh down your soul. Guard your tongue, for most who fall into regret have fallen through their words." The son nodded silently, tears forming in his eyes. "O my son, if ever you doubt the day of resurrection, remember your sleep. When you sleep, you have no control over your soul, and when you awaken, it returns to you. Just as you rise from sleep, so too will you rise from death." It is said that Luqman, radiallahu anhu, learned 7,000 pearls of wisdom throughout his life. Before he died, he shared 4 of them as his final gift to his son. "Strengthen your boat, for the sea of life is deep. Lighten your load of sins, for the valley ahead is steep. Gather provisions of good deeds, for the journey is long. And perform all deeds sincerely, for the one who inspects them sees all." Then he whispered, "You will be asked, how did you spend your youth? How did you earn your wealth, and on what did you spend it? Be ready, my son, to answer truthfully." His voice grew faint as the night air cooled. "Do not grieve over what you lose in this world, for nothing in it is everlasting. Stay vigilant, grateful, and repent often. Keep your heart awake before death comes, for it arrives without warning." And with those final words, Hazrat Luqman, ﷺ, closed his eyes, his lips moving in remembrance of Allah until his last breath. His legacy. Centuries have passed, yet his wisdom lives on, immortalized in Surah Luqman. When he said to his son, "O my dear son, do not associate anything with Allah," it was not just advice, it was a message to every believer. Parents are reminded to raise their children with faith before all else, just as Luqman did. For when a child's belief is firm, their actions follow righteousness. And so, dear brothers and sisters, Luqman's life reminds us, wisdom is not measured by titles, wealth, or beauty, but by the purity of the heart, the truth of the tongue, and the depth of one's gratitude to Allah. Luqman, radiallahu anhu, was not a prophet, yet Allah chose to preserve his name forever, a sign those who live sincerely, with humility and faith, will be remembered long after their time. May we learn from his story to guard our hearts, control our tongues, and raise our children upon the light of Tawheed. If this story touched your heart, then don't forget to subscribe to Religious Storytelling, so we can continue to share more stories that awaken the soul and bring us closer to Allah.